very much for joining. Pat James is here with me from Pat James and the Whole Truth. And thanks for taking the time to jump on the Indie Distributor podcast. Today, we just wanted to kind of catch up with you and get a sense of some things as far as your origin story. I always wanted to ask about the kind of how things get started. I mean, obviously gone through your bio, but it's always nice to hear it directly from your, your experience directly. How did things get started? How did you get wrapped up in this crazy industry? I mean, what's the origin story?
So I guess it really depends on how far back you want to go. If we're talking the project, that was, years and years in the making. I'd been in a few original projects in the last, 10, 12 years. And I've always been the primary songwriter, but I've never been the fully the, primary decision maker.
Okay.
And for anyone who writes music and performs in a band as a group, you generally have to give concessions to what other people want as well, and try and everybody has their input.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to write a lot of across many genres when it comes to songwriting. And so a lot of material that I had written over the years kind of sat dormant because it didn't really fit this project that I was in at the time, or, maybe it was a little off brand or whatever the case may be. And eventually I just hit a point where I was like, well, I don't have a brand. Like, everything I write is me. And so this is the birth of the Pat James and the Whole Truth, the idea that everything that I write, everything that I create is me, and there's no real thought or consensus as to what that should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this was really just we I say we because I work in a team, but when I thought about putting this album together, there was a plethora of material to choose from, and this was just the first 12 songs we grabbed. I mean, there's another album waiting to be recorded once this one is sort of finished being promoted and played, and when funds are available, we'll get there. But that's really how I got here, is just the need to sort of express every part of my songwriting.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's not necessarily classified by a genre, given the fact that you've kind of woven through a few different, I guess, musical identities in that regard. Because from just going through a bit of your history, you've gone from the post grunge era to and maybe some influences were navigating your songwriting at that time, but now it's sort of landed in this. I mean, Apple Music classifies it as Americana. I mean, I don't know how you perceive what that brand is, and whether that's something that you're gonna lean into or sort of not let define you as these new songs start to take shape.
That Americana roots rock branding is actually something that was sort of chosen in terms of, because when you upload music, they basically make you put yourself in a box. Like, they say, pick the one that most represents, or pick 3 that represent. And you're sitting there going, okay, well, in my 20s, I was really into punk, and that comes out in some of the songs, in the way that I write bridges and the rhythms that I choose. Maybe not so much on this album, but in my songwriting and in other songs. And so it's really hard when choosing what fits. And so working with some industry people who, their best judgment for us was, hey, use these tags because they're they give you the most left and right of the post. You can kind of sit comfortably in here and not have to be, super acoustic based, or you can still be kind of riff rock, and you can kind of do this. And I think it fits the overarching theme, I think, in my songwriting, regardless of what it sounds like, is that I'm always trying to tell a story. Like every song has a beginning, middle, end. There's generally a character that you can kind of follow through. So I think that that's very, folk Americana storytelling. And so maybe that's why, it sort of fits. But yeah, I don't really know when it comes to the genre stuff. I mean, I try not to think too much about it because it will, even if it's subconsciously, it will play on my thought. Like, ooh, is this a little? Am I getting too outside the vibe of what I'm like? No, there's no vibe. We're just making music. Let's just do whatever feels good. So
I like landing on that as the ultimate decision, because one of the questions that we sort of dread, even though it's a genuine question, is what do you guys sound like? What defines your sound, right? It's like everybody seems to ask it, even though it's a very hard thing to answer sometimes. I saw some Instagram posts back when the record was being released about you're bringing back the full length record, and 12 song releases are coming back. What was the sort of discussions or decision making process behind releasing an actual album rather than a series of EPs or singles?
So we did release singles off the album, like leading up to the album. So we did follow the algorithm trend of trying to create that every 6-8 week new music being posted. As much as I want to be the guy that says I'm going back to old ways and old media, and this, we still have to play the game with the media that we have, the medium that we have, which is online streaming, and so we did release singles. But the idea behind the album, for me, I always grew up with albums. I always grew up. What a weird way to say that. I grew up in a time where it was always normal to release an album, and you would have these. You hear people of a certain age talk about it all the time. The liner notes, the stories, the little, the artwork inside, being able to open up, the CD. For me, I was a little bit past vinyl, but, and seeing things in there that weren't readily available because we didn't have online, and we didn't have, much more than magazines and much music. So wanting to do the full album, wanting to kind of create that experience was something for me that I'd always wanted to do. And I knew that for morbid reasons, I'm also a very morbid person. I think, I don't know if it comes across in my writing fully, but I always tend to write from like a darker perspective. It's not that I'm not a happy guy, but I definitely had a thought of like, well, I should probably release an album because, you can get hit by a bus any day.
This is true.
It could all go. So to have a plan where the ultimate goal was to release an album one day was like, well, today's the day. Let's release an album, and I can do whatever I want after that. But that was always an ultimate goal. So really, it was just a decision based out of just never knowing if you were going to get to do it. I mean, I've never released a full length album before, and it's taken me this long, to get here. I'm 46. And to me, this is a bucket list thing to do, and I'm really proud of it. Like, I think it also, maybe I'm biased, but I think it also adds to it that I actually think it's a really great album that I think people would enjoy listening to, even if they have no idea who we are or anything about us. There's something on there for everyone, I think.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm also from the school of releasing full-length albums, because I find that it's just more representative of a statement piece of where the artist is at the time. It's a snapshot into several, even if the songs are decades old, it doesn't really matter. It's just the manifestation of those songs is a statement about the artist at that moment. And sometimes you're feeling morbid, and sometimes you're feeling happy, and the writing sort of comes out in that. So I totally agree that it's too bad that experience that you were talking about isn't really the same for people. And I don't know if this is across the board. I have to watch, how my kids interact with music, and it's a very transient thing. It's not a sit down with the liner notes, immerse yourself in what's being said, and listen to it top to bottom type of experience. I find that these days it is single driven.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's hard for me to say that that's bad. It's just the way
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, even with my my son, he's 10 years old. I don't push him towards music. I don't try and entice him to pick up an instrument or anything like that. But he does love music, and he's always singing. But I mean, he's singing whatever the trending audio is in the videos that, and they might be songs from 40 years ago. It's more like sound bites, like what's popular right now when you're scrolling through videos, or what sounds people are using. And I do think that there are some younger people. It's funny, we actually had this discussion a couple times at shows we would play, especially when we would do like outdoor festivals, like where it's like a family, possibly, you're playing in Canada Day or something like that. And I had some under 20-ish crowd of people, well, I'll call them kids, but 20-year-old adult-ish people who were coming up to us after the show and saying how they really loved the set, and there was this one song that really, and what was that called? And it might have been 3 or 4 people out of a few hundred that were there, but I was like, oh, you guys just made my day. Like, yeah. But there's definitely younger people today who are maybe looking for something a little more in depth, who kind of see the surface levelness of music today, which is, I mean, you could go on you could talk an hour, or you could do a 10-part miniseries just on that, I'm sure. But not to, I will apologize. I do have a tendency to just like keep going further from the point. So you just have to like rein me back in if it happens.
No, that is okay. This is
I tend to go off, but I do think that there is an overall trend that I'm seeing where people want something of more substance. It's not the norm by any mean, but more and more I am hearing people, whether they're younger or older, just talking about wanting to like have more connection.
Yeah.
And that could be connection with family, friends, in this case, with music, art, media, less time, just sort of scrolling through things, and more like getting out there. And I think that's something that we really want to try and tap into as a band. That's something that I want to tap into, where you hear it's like a soundbite, like, oh, we want to build real connection with our fan base. I mean, like, I want to meet our fan base. Like when we're at a show, I want to thank everyone for being there. I want to shake their hands. I want to take a selfie with them if that's what they want. But like, I want to let them know like how appreciated they are for being there and just being a part of it in real life,
Absolutely. So. Well, I mean, and that makes a lot of sense. I think, we're thinking about things in terms of what people are dedicating their time to, and it's such a valuable commodity. It's something that people take sometimes for granted, when so much time is spent sort of flipping through this constant feed of content, that someone had taken the time to come to attend one of your concerts and then actually listened to the material. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, can I give you a hug?
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really is. I think we've reached possibly this inflection point, because I've been speaking to some other artists about this too, where there's a real sort of retraction happening from the proliferation of AI generated material, and even my kids who are 14 and 11 are anti-AI on several levels, especially when it comes to creative outlets, which I'm hopeful about. I mean, I know AI is a whole other conversation, but when it comes to people having the experience of sitting and watching a performer, I feel like that is something that we're seeing the pendulum swing back the other way, and it's just starting to do that.
Right.
So I think you're of the right mind, honestly, to sort of lean into the full statement of the craft, even though these days for performers and indie musicians, it's extremely tough.
It really is. I mean, it would be very easy to try and write something that sounded catchy and come up with, not to come up with a viral video, because I think like that's not easy, but I mean, it would be easier to gain traction online if that's your goal today, which is, I think it was the goal of a lot of artists for a long time, because we looked at social media as this thing that if we are succeeding here, then we're succeeding with our music. If we have big numbers here following us, it means we're important. It means that we matter. And it means that, a label or a festival or whomever is going to take us more seriously. And I think what we're trying to do, and what I talk about with other artists, and what I hope is something that will spread, is this idea that, I would rather have an engaged fan base of, 100 people, or 1,000 people, 100 people in 10 different cities, who every time I go there to play, 50 of them show up because their schedules aligned, and we're all engaged, and we're all connected with the music, and we all care about the same thing, having a good time with what we're doing there. And it's such a small number compared to what, 10 years ago, I remember going and playing a showcase with a band that I was in at the time called the Road Heavy, and a record label being there at this showcase saying, yeah, well, you guys are great. Sounds good. We could you just got to get your numbers up. Like, we like to see, and I can't remember the number, but, like, we like to see 20,000 followers across 3 platforms, and I remember that was just like, okay, we've got to go. We got to push. We need more numbers, because they're not going to take us seriously until we get, 5,000-6,000 more people following us. And I want to use the word toxic, but not the way we talk about it. Like, I mean, literally, like, I felt like you feel sick about it. You feel like you're ingesting this poison or something, where you're like, I know that I'm not supposed to be doing this. Like, I know this does not feel right. This does not feel like the reason, 20-year-old me, 18-year-old me, in high school, 17-year-old me. When do we graduate? Anyway, young me sitting there thinking about, playing guitar, being on stage in front of a mass audience of people who are just having a great time and happy to be there, and we're all just feeding off each other's energy. Did not think that it would be hinged on how many thumbs up I got, on the magic computer box. And so it's nice to see things kind of change, where artists are seeming to be more genuinely concerned with the connection with their audience and building an engaged fan base, rather than a massive fan base of people who liked a video because you looked good in it one time, or you sounded good, or you did something funny in it, which is, you still do all those things. You still do all the things that show people your personality. I still try to post content. Well, first off, I'm not allowed to post content. I have someone who posts content and curates the page for that reason.
Nice.
Who keeps it looking good, because I would post all kinds of nonsense and things, like I'll post movie clips, and it's just, I understand that part of the business side of it. Like, you want to share the most relevant things online, and keep the really deeply personal stuff for the real interactions, like the streams when you go live, or at the show, and that but we I like to see that we are, as artists, are maybe starting to see the importance of building that community, even if it is a smaller community, but a community of people who are like really invested in what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, there's another inflection point when it comes to the recognition that if it's just about the numbers, then there's so much that gets lost in translation, because it almost seems like that's exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And I think for the the very tried and true fans that you're trying to appeal to, that type of stuff doesn't matter. They're engaging with you because they have some point of resonation with the message or the music, or it's setting off an emotional response. They could care less how many other followers you have, right? And I think it's just interesting to see that in some cases, artists who have, quote, made it, end up having these conversations with journalists and saying, I've done the big, huge stadiums and things like that, but I find there's this impersonality to it. And I end up yearning for the days when we were playing these closed sort of festival circuit things, and like smaller venues where you could see people and interact with them, and be part of the experience. So I think across the board, it's interesting as indie musicians where there's all this pressure applied to getting the numbers. Like you're saying, right?
I think, like, there's two shows that stand out to me that I've been to in the last few years. One was a concert I went to Detroit with a good friend of mine to go see Springsteen a few years back, and that really did kick off the I want to do this. Like, I want to go, this was, like, I knew I was kind of gearing up for the project, and I was like, I think I might do this thing. And then I went to that concert and saw this stadium show be performed for 3 hours, this massive music. And it wasn't even, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, but it wasn't even all of his music, it was like little tidbits here and there, but it was just such a great performance, and done in such a way that you felt part of the show, even though there was, I don't know how many people fit in the stadium there. I think we looked it up, maybe it was like 20,000 or something, but when I saw that, the entire drive home, I was like rejuvenated or invigorated, or all the words that meant, I was ready to go, and I was, ready to do this thing. And I think that people can, like, that's what you want from the show, like you watch a concert, or you watch a band perform, and if they do it in a way that you connect with, and you feed off that energy, it kind of gears you up. I mean, I could have been someone just as easily thinking that I wanted to be an actor, or I wanted to be and I would have left that concert feeling like it's time to go become an actor, because you just watch someone for 3 hours do something in front of so many people, but they did it. The band, Bruce himself, did it in a way where, you felt like you were there with him. Like, you didn't feel like you were just one of the crowd out in the, out in the ether of it all. And I think that that's something that is really hard to accomplish. And that's on a massive scale. Now, I didn't leave there thinking, okay, the goal is I want to play, the Sky Dome. Sorry, the Rogers Center, or whatever. Is it the Rogers Center?
I'll call it Sky Dome.
I call it the Sky Dome, right? I want to play the Sky Dome. I left there thinking, like, I want to play a room with like 50 people in it because I want to be able to see everyone's face. Because I know I'm not, I'm not stadium guy. I'm not, maybe not yet. I don't know. I'm not there. But I want to try and achieve what I saw on this, what I saw that day with Bruce Springsteen. I want to try and achieve that on my scale.
Yeah.
What I define as success for me. And, you always have people ask you like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the goal? What's the trajectory? Or what are you trying to do? And I'm like, honestly, man, I just want to be able to consistently put 50 people in a room or 100 people in a room and tell some stories, connect. I love nothing more than playing a song and having someone feel it.
Yeah.
Someone relate to it. And that to me gives me the same feeling as what I felt sitting in that stadium, watching that big concert.
Yeah, I think, I don't want anyone to have to set their sights lower as indie musicians. I mean, you always have to have that fire. And I think you just touched on it with well, maybe not yet, like, because you always have a feeling that, you're doing this
maybe
with the possibility that there's something out there that, maybe lightning will strike. And, but the foundation of it, I think, is what's important. Because we're talking about the connection with, it starts with one person and it can broaden out from there. And I think if we're focused on that as indie musicians, instead of looking at the really grinding to get 50K followers on Instagram. I have a recent virality story about over the holidays. I posted flippantly a video of my cats and my dog, and they were going around the Christmas tree and whatever. And I ended up filming it and I just posted it on a whim. And that's what ended up getting 300,000 likes and views and stuff. None of my other content ever reached that amount. And then, so there's this surplus of people that paid attention for 15 seconds and then they went about their day. And that can't be something that we're striving for. Right? Like, I know everybody says, I want to, create virality and have a viral video or a video that goes viral. But the problem with that is that it's transient. It's
It is one of those things where I feel like, as I'm hearing you tell that exact story, my, conditioned social media brain that knows that's not the right thing to aim for. I was like, oh, you should probably post that video again, but put your newest single in the background.
Well, I will say that I was like, I missed an opportunity by not posting a Shoemaker Levy song on that video. But had I known, like,
right. And I think that's the thing where it's like, isn't it funny that is where our brains are conditioned to go as artists, as opposed to, man, it must have just been awesome to watch your cat and dog run around a tree. Like, can't that just be the thing that it is? But we're conditioned, or we're looking at things now like, how do we compound that? How do we get the most out of that? And I think that you kind of said something earlier about, like, the artist wanting 50,000 K followers or this or that, and that video or those moments when you're just like being you, I think is what people can be drawn to. But you can't be that all the time, and you can't manufacture it, I think. And I think when we stop looking at it, and you always work towards getting more. I realize it's a fine balance, like, let's be honest, it's a fine balance. You can't say, well, I'm not doing any of that, I'm not participating, because there is an element to that you have to use, because, like, an eloquent way to say it is escaping me, but, like, even your 50 to 100 followers, they want that cat chasing the dog around. They want to see that side of you. Like, I think that for me, I spend a lot of time in my truck driving. Whether I'm on the road to work or whether so I've been sharing with people what I do when I'm in my truck. So sometimes, I'm just driving and I'll record, I'll set my phone up on my little holder and I'll record my road traveled.
Right.
Sometimes I'll just post a snippet of my entire day of traveling with, my song behind it. Is it the best content? No. Is it going to, go viral? No, but that is a reality of my life, like that is, this is what I'm doing right now, like if you want to know, I spend a lot of time driving and I'm overnight. So I'm out there at night. I'm out there during the day. I'm all over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I'll post videos of me singing in my truck,
Yeah.
and just, this is what I do.
I
It's,
think that's an important distinction is that people really want to see the human side.
yeah,
And then not necessarily the polished version of, we really set out to intentionally shoot this video of us citing this scripted message. It's in a lot of cases, people want to see the in between. What is it like when you bust a string on stage, or like what was it like in the green room when, before setting up for the show, and those sort of moments that happen that aren't necessarily scripted. And I think that's kind of where we've gotten to is, as artists, is to say, well, how comfortable am I disclosing some of that sort of in between stuff?
yeah,
Right. I think there's a reason why the Get Back series, the Peter Jackson or the Beatles was so, well, obviously because of the Beatles, but like, there's a lot of B-roll. Like, it's
yeah,
just them shooting the shit. But people loved it because it just showed these are like just guys
yeah.
sitting around and, doing their thing.
The
Um,
process in behind, like the banter, the watching who you believe to be some of the, and they are, some of the greatest songwriters, musicians, but watching them like discuss chord progressions and like, what was that again? And you're just like, oh yeah, they screw stuff up too, like
exactly.
they're just a
Yeah.
bunch of guys, sitting around playing guitars, or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fascinating. So, a little bit, changing subject a little bit, but
hmm,
getting into, to video. So for example, the Old Roads video where you have, this sort of storyboard motif where you're going in and you're starting up the projector and stuff. And, so conceptually, because video is something I find a lot of indie artists, I know myself as well, struggle with in terms of setting the budget, determining the storyline, that sort of thing. Could you share a little bit of what the inception of that was like, and how that kind of got developed?
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that videos for artists right now, music videos are a struggle because I just want to say, because every professional person in the industry, whether it be that I've spoken to, whether it would be, someone who would help, maybe with marketing or help with playlisting, if that was something, just any kind of conversations I had, everyone was like, don't spend any money on videos. It's a dead format. Like
Hmm.
nobody's really doing videos anymore. And I was like really taken back by that, because I used to love, like, anytime I think of a music video, whatever reason, the first music video that pops in my head is Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun. I don't know
Oh yeah.
why. It's just I have this image of, Chris Cornell singing and this, kaleidoscope sort of weird, background behind him, on the really colorful, but he, and I just remember thinking like, that's so cool. Like I love videos. I love videos. I love Meatloaf. I love music videos that tell a story.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm all over the place a little bit with that stuff. But when it comes to that music video for Old Roads, to answer your question, conceptually, was like we were sitting around saying like, you know, I'm old, I'm older. We want to do this thing that's technically an older thing to do, which is releasing a full length album. And so it just kind of fell in line where I was thinking like, well, what other things, uh, you know, are cool that I think are cool that we don't use anymore. And it was just like this idea of like slideshows or projectors. I just had this idea, and my my thought was that I wanted to, with that song specifically, I wanted to show the places that I was talking about,
Mhm.
because, you know, I did grow up in a small town. You know, I grew up in Aurora, and I watched it change. You know, that song is just about how you can live somewhere your entire life and the roads stay the same, but the landscape changes drastically, like to the point where you might be on a familiar street that looks nothing like you remember. Um, you know, especially if you grew up there, you know. And it was this idea of just sort of like going through time in photos, you know, and uh, we expanded it to include, you know, some Toronto locations and places that may no longer be there, just to kind
I
of
did
show.
catch Sam the Record Man, so that's
Yeah, you
good.
know, and I tried to keep it to places that I did have a, you know, I'd been to Sam the Record Man like once or twice in my life. Like the
Mhm.
first uh music that I'd ever purchased from a store, it was probably like early 90, like 1990, 91, and my father had taken me to Toronto for the day. And I remember being in an arcade, and then we walked across the street, and he took me into Sam the Record Man, and I bought it was a big movie for me at the time. I bought the Blaze of Glory soundtrack from Bon Jovi. Yeah, it was, I listened to that a lot.
Nice.
But you know, the lights, the flat, you know, the being down there, just the, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, I'll go on a bit of another side tangent here, but like, don't you miss that? Like, you know, people miss that, like the sounds. Like, if you are a young person today and you've never walked into an arcade and heard the sound of the ding ding ding, ding, you know, the pinball machine or something, like there's like everything today is so, oh, it lives in the cloud or it lives online, and it's not. And I think that video specifically that we made for Old Roads was to just show you, like, you know, people, these are the places we used to go. This is where we used to hang out. This is where we used to go to, you know, listen to music and play, you know, buy music, and uh, you know, the old brewer, and used to go, you know, now you can get beer delivered to your house. You don't have to go get that either. You know, it's
Yeah.
all very convenient. Um, I feel like I did not answer your question there, and I
No, you did
apologize.
it. I mean, initially it was rooted in, okay, well, so the ideation, which you did talk about, here's conceptually what we want to do with this video.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
I went
think,
more to the emotion of it, which was like wanting to like walk back through time and just see if I could like feel, like, between the song and the images, if we could just like have people feel the song,
yeah,
you know, show them what it was about, show them things that they might not remember. Like, I never remember Sam the Record Man and the sounds of that arcade just by chance. And when I saw the photos, it definitely brought me back. So I think, to get back to the actual point of the video, like, I think that was it. Was we wanted people to feel the message of the song, not just hear it.
yeah, and I think, you know, perhaps the takeaway message for indie artists that are listening to this, it's, I think there is something to be said for careful on budgeting for video. I don't think it's a situation where you shouldn't budget for it. In some cases, it might call for a little bit more professional grade, you know, input. However, I think depending on what you're going for, and in your case, I think you were going for the nostalgia and the emotional connection, and I feel like you hit it. Um, but I don't think a massive budget was required to get to
No, I was
one
gonna.
shot thing, and
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
that was a very budget friendly video. I would say the most expensive thing was the rental of the space that we used, because it we wanted a very specific open area, and we just couldn't find it somewhere that was free. So
mhm.
the most expensive thing I paid for was a couple $100 for the space that we used for, you know, 5 or 6 hours. Um, but we shot that with a DSLR camera that I've had since, you know, 2012. We shoot everything on an iPhone. I mean, with filters today, I mean, you have everything you need
Mhm.
realistically to do a DIY version of something. And also I think that people today are used to seeing things treated online, treated like filters, treated like, so if you make a video and you want it to look grainy and old, I mean, there's an app for that. You could just, and is it going to be the best quality? Is it going to look like? Probably not, but have fun with it,
Yeah.
and don't take yourself so seriously to the point where you think we need, I remember doing a music video in a previous band, and we spent, $3,000, hired someone to film it, and it took all day to shoot on a location, and it was by far the best music video that I've ever made, that I've ever been a part of. And that was a cool experience. Would I recommend that that's something you need to do every time you make a music video? Absolutely not, because that Old Roads video was like a few $100, and me and, my best friend hanging out, with the camera. And to me, I just think like there was maybe a time for that when you were like, it's, you got to stand out, and now it's, I don't know. I just feel like we're so used to seeing things on our phone. 99% of people are going to watch it on their phone. They're not going to, oh, the video's out, let me get home, throw it up on my 80-inch TV and sit there and watch it and sniff the screen and make sure everything looks, great. And not to get too off here, but I also think that like you as an artist today are expected to wear so many hats and be able to do so many things. Like, it's to your benefit to figure out a way to make videos that are affordable, because you can use snippets from it for your social media and for your engagement. But it's so important for you to be able to make videos and get comfortable making these videos and editing them yourself, because that's how we're engaging with people. Like, video is such a big one, video and photos, like, if and you don't want to spend a lot of money on this stuff. Like, it's not going to you're not going to get the return on your investment. And people are expecting to see this stuff, so it's like, you don't, like, they're expecting to see the filter, the trend, like they're so you can, I guess all of that is to say that you don't need to put in this big budget to try and make something artistic. You just take your best shot at it. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. I feel like I can't even really explain it. You just have to take it so much less serious than we probably ever did before, and just make the video. I
think there's definitely something to be said for that, which is taking the first step, right? I've seen content creators say a lot of what it takes is just getting started.
Yeah.
And then getting into the habit of being communicative with your I don't want to say persona, like basically yourself. Like, what does that look like? And what are you trying to say? And let's get at least get the ball rolling, and don't let, a music video is probably going to cost me thousands of dollars. Don't let that deter you from, no, well, wait a minute. We've got the tools at our disposal. We can actually do something that is, you don't want to say like deter people from being creative, but
no, absolutely.
But there's creative on a budget these days.
There's a way to be creative on a budget. And if you are, I will say this, if you are in a band, or if you are an artist and you have $1,000 that and I'm just using, I mean, that's probably even a stretch there. You have
$1,000.
No, you have $1,000. You have $500. You have an amount of money that is substantial in your mind. You are going to probably be better served by that $500, or that, let's say $500, to spend $50 making a video, edit it yourself, buy some decent, AI helpful editing software, CapCut. There's all of this stuff that's out there. You're going to probably be better off doing that and spending $450 on fuel and food and rooms, and go play 2 or 3 shows a couple hours away from home and try to connect with people out there, and bring your show somewhere and record all that. Use that for your next video.
Right.
You know, if you're going to drop that kind of money on a music video and that's your entire, you know, budget, you know, if you're like the rest of us who are not fortunate enough to have, you know, excessive cash that we can just throw everywhere, you know, and you're being mindful, I think the budget should always be spent on, you know, quality recording, audio, the actual product you're putting out there, and getting out to where you can meet the people, where you can play for them, wherever that might be. Your $500 is going to go further if you take full advantage of that trip. You know, if like right now, you know, for us, we're looking at doing some shows around Northern Ontario. We don't want to play once a week and travel around. My thought is 1 weekend a month. Let's try and book 3 shows, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, heading somewhere. And, you know, let's say, you know, room, board, and everything, that a 3-day trip is going to cost $1,000, you know, for food, fuel, and hotels. Well, that $1,000 is going to be way more valuable in return than putting $1,000 into making a music video for no one to watch, because I haven't gone out there to get them yet. You know, I haven't gone out there to get their eyeballs yet. So I just think that, like, we got to be careful as artists, like, where we put our money, the limited money, and you know, and our time investment.
Totally makes sense. And it actually addresses one of the things that this entire podcast, the reason for its existence is to try to encourage and also be an educational resource for independent musicians. And that's some great advice you just offered there. So thanks for that. In the interest of time, just to wrap things up a little bit, even though I know we're sort of flowing with the wind a little bit in terms of our life and our artistic journey, I would like to know what's next for you guys. What's on the agenda next couple of months?
Right now, we've got the album is fully released. We're going to spend the next, you know, year or so, 12 to 18 months, continuing to promote the album officially now, while we try and set up these weekend shows that I was talking about. So right now, you know, April, May, June is already kind of coming together, and we've applied to, you know, we're going out to Sault Ste. Marie. And I would say real quickly to artists, don't be afraid to travel. Sault Ste. Marie loves music. We had a venue there just offer to basically give us residence for the weekend, so we wouldn't have to find multiple shows to play.
And then is that to play your original music?
Yeah, we're going to play our original music. They offered to bring in we'll do an hour and a half, you know, and they'll bring in a DJ after that. So I think because it's such a rarely traveled to location, it's hard to get there because it's not on the way, unless you're on the way out west.
Yep.
You're never going there. So they really appreciate bands coming out, and they're willing to, like, put you up somewhere and help you out and find, you know. So that's just something for artists to consider. I just wanted to point that out. Getting north of the city, getting out that way. Don't be afraid to travel, because I think that they're more receptive to new music.
That's
great.
Going
back to what you were saying. For us this year, the rest of the year, 12 to 18 months, is going to be promoting the album, sort of revisiting each song a little bit more in-depthly each month, I think, and, like, really trying to share what the music is about from the writing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something that's important to me. That's just something I plan to do. Obviously getting out and playing these shows. We've applied to multiple festivals, Gustapalooza and things like that. So we're, you know, hopefully we'll be doing more festivals this year. But as far as, music, I mean, we've already started, jamming some material that isn't on the album that we started working on. And like I said, I have a pile of music waiting to bring it out. So the plan will be to slowly continue to create new songs that, in the next year or so we can get back in the studio and do the follow-up, whatever that is. I haven't decided if it would have to be another album, if it would be, an EP, if it would be, I think now that I've done the album, I feel like I can sort of breathe a bit and say, okay, well, I might want to just, I'm feeling frisky. Let's get in the studio and bang off 4 or 5 songs off the floor and do an EP, live off the floor somewhere of new material and see how that is. I think that's something that I'm interested in. I feel like we create music, we put it out, and here's the polished version of it. And I realize that budgets, constraints, things like that. But I also think that, like, I remember growing up and there being like, oh, that recording from that show, that, release that stuff. Like if you can get a decent recording off the board from somewhere, which is more and more possible now with the digital boards that are out there and microphones you can set up, release that stuff. People want that, even if it's just on your website, even if it's like you can download it only on our website, you go there and get it and you can save it on, people don't know, or a lot of people don't know, I guess, that you can play music from your phone through Spotify and through, like, you can access those files. So give your fans behind the scenes audio. They'll listen to it if they're into what you're doing, create that stuff. So I think that's something that's interesting to me. I have ideas for, like, a grouping of songs that might have similar meaning, that might be something, whatever. Maybe it's Broken Hearts Club type album, EP or something. I'll release that in February or something. So lots of ideas, but the plan is just to share the music we have out there and play as many shows as we can for people that are interested in the music.
Yeah.
I'm done playing for people while they're eating chicken wings. I don't know. I did that for a long time. I feel like by saying that, I've said something slightful. It's not. I spent many years playing solo acoustic bar gigs where people just didn't care. And you play a busy bar and it sounds like, oh, we're somewhere amazing. It's busy. And give me 10 people in a coffee house, or 5 people in a house concert any day over 200 people that could care less if I'm a DJ or whatever.
Yeah, I hear you, and we share the same philosophy. I think what's important too is developing that community of people that think the same way, that might be able to, collaborate on bringing audiences, because clearly the audience that listens to you guys will likely be, resonate with similar indie bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Circuit, right? So,
absolutely. And I do want to say thank you for having me on the show, and I completely appreciate what you guys are doing, and we need as as independent artists, we need more of it. We don't have much music, and Exclaim is of a certain caliber only to talk about artists. They're not really, we need these.
Where's Now Magazine? Right.
I forget what I forgot about Now. Yeah, is that
Now was a print publication back in the day that actually had listings of concerts and all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
we need more of these platforms for artists to talk just like this and share and create. It's that culture of just like that energy. You put out music, you talk about it. There's somewhere to talk about it. There's someone who wants to listen. You have an audience. We have an audience. Our audience will see your show. Your audience will see our music, and we just kind of create this energy around what we're trying to do. And if we all have the same mindset of building, I think it's we can all only go up from there.
Love that, and couldn't agree more. Totally. So thank you, Pat, so much for taking the time to come on.